Good evening. Can you all hear me? Is the audio fine? Can you see my presentation? Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so kindly just mute your mic so not have any noise in the background, and let's start. First, allow me to thank you for joining the session, and I hope it will be informative. This is not a promoting or it's not a marketing session. This is a complete educational session, which I believe it's quite important. Our session is 45 minutes. Actually, it's 1 hour, but we're gonna have the session in 45 minutes, and then we're gonna leave 15 minutes by the end of the session in case you have any doubts or questions. My name is Mohammed Atif, and I'll be conducting the ISMS implementation session. So before we start, let me confirm that this is a complete educational workshop. I'm not here to sell any training or any of my courses. This is a complete educational and workshop that focus on some demand in the market today, which is ISMS implementation. So before we start, let me just tell you what are the audience that I'm expecting in this session, okay? I mean, you're gonna spend like 1 hour with me, so at least you need to know this session will be about what and who's the audience for such session. In this session or in this workshop, we're gonna explain the Information Security Management System implementation, or the ISMS. And this is for people who are looking to join cybersecurity, but they are kind of confused. They have different kind of backgrounds. They have a lot of questions about the prerequisite to join. I'm sorry? Just 1 second. Okay, let me. Oh. I'm so sorry about that because sometime Microsoft team will mute the connection. I don't know why. But let's get back to my point, which is target audience. To whom we are doing this workshop, or who's our audience exactly. First, this session is for people who are looking to join cybersecurity career, but they don't know the best path to do that, or they are kind of confused about their background and the prerequisite needed for joining cybersecurity. This is the first category. Second category is people who are already working in cybersecurity, but they are somehow involved in one of the ISMS project, which right now it's a big demand. There is a big demand for people who got experience implementing ISMS in their organization, but they are not aware of the skills needed to implement an ISMS. The session is also for people who are preparing for the sophisticated cybersecurity certificate like CISSP. CISSP is one of the highest information security certificate, except people are studying it in an academic way, just to get to know about the terminology and definitions. But they don't know exactly how to implement such knowledge in a real business environment. So if you are under one of those categories, I think you will get some important information about ISMS implementation. So let's start. So before we start, I have just some important facts that will clarify the importance of our workshop today. Recently, I have been getting a lot of emails from company asking about my feedback regarding some candidates who apply for jobs and they write my name as a reference. But I noticed that the majority of those emails came related to ISO 27001, okay, which is the information security standard. So people are asking for this specific candidates who took one of my training, is he qualified to work in an ISO 27001 project? So I noticed the last few months I'm getting a lot of those emails. Also, I have been getting a lot of mails related or from some of my partners in US and Europe and Middle East requesting for resources to recommend resources for them that can work on an ISO 27001 project. Okay, so I got a feeling that right now, and there is actually a good explanation for that. Right now, there is a very high demand for candidates who got skills or who got some experience in implementing ISMS, which is a prerequisite to get ISO 27001 certification as an organization. And regardless of the mails that I shared, let's do a small research together. So if you search on Google for ISO 27001 jobs, you will find that there is a very high demand right now for people who got experience in ISO 27001 or ISMS. As you can see, you will find numbers, a huge number of position here, like 18 position. I found like 500 position in some website. Some websites there was like 200. So by doing a small research, and you can do that yourself, you will find that there is a lot of demand related to ISMS or ISO 27001. And this is for the last like 8 or 9 months. Also, not just the permanent position, but just having a small search on some of the freelancer website. So even if you don't consider to change your position right now, but you need to get some experience by providing some outsource or freelancing services related to ISO 27001. Let's see, is it in demand and how much they charge people who got this kind of experience. So let's search. Of course, this website, it's Upwork, one of the most common website for freelancer. If you are looking for a freelancer or if you need to provide services as a freelancer, this is one of the best websites. So I'm searching for 27001 to see people who got experience in this field. So let's take this guy for instance. His charge is $100 per hour. Let's see exactly what he's doing. He's claiming that he have experience in ISO 27001. So let's have an idea. So going through the tasks that he prevented. So as you can see, he did some documentation, and most of our work, by the way, is documentation. You need to have some strong background, which is doable. You know, you don't need to have like 15 years of experience, but after all, it's a huge documentation process. So he did some documentation process. He provided for some organization policy document, which you can get from many websites. You can get the template and customize them according to the business. He did some risk assessment, which is also, it's not a hard process, but you need to understand how it's done. He did some technical writing. So after all, if you check, he just did some documentation, okay? And he's charging $100 per hour, and there is a high demand for that, okay? And again, there is a good explanation and a good reason for that, which you're gonna explain in a few minutes. So my point here is that ISMS, it's a main trend right now in cybersecurity business. And people who got the skills and knowledge on how to implement ISMS and get the ISO 27001 certification will not face any problem finding a decent job, especially right now. Time couldn't be better. So let's get back to our presentation. One also important fact that I found on the internet, and it makes a lot of sense actually. According to the last survey they did about the availability of cybersecurity position or the expectation of available position in 2021, they are estimating to have 3.5 million unfilled position in cybersecurity. Not all of them, of course, related to ISMS, but in general, there is a big gap in cybersecurity position. We are expecting, or they are expecting, to have 3.5 million unfilled position by this year. Now, does it mean that people do not apply for those positions? I know many people, actually most of the people right now who are working in network and development, they are considering moving to security field. So why we cannot fulfill the market requirement? According to the same statistic, 1 in every 4 who apply for this position gets selected. Okay, that means that there is 4 people applying for a job. They think they are qualified, but only 1 of them, which represent 25%, are getting higher. What about those 75%? What is the problem with those 75% remaining? The 3 people, what is the problem with them? Okay, the problem is that they are qualifying themselves in the wrong way. So you think that you need to work in compliance and framework and ISO 27000 and ISMS. You go and take few trainings and you get a certificate and you think that's it. I'm getting a lot of emails related to students. They only focus about certificate. What is the best certificate to get in cybersecurity? Okay? And they do their best to get the certificate, and it ends up to be a piece of paper. Okay? Because it's not like if you're gonna apply for a job and they will find that, for instance, you are CISSP certified, they will hire you right away. Actually, it's not working this way. You need to have some realistic skills. And this is what we're going to talk about today. What are the realistic skills that you need to gain and how to gain it? Especially in the ISMS field, which is the major or the high demand field in the market today. So it's a quite interesting numbers that you need to keep in mind. So what is ISMS and why it's quite important right now, especially the last few months? ISMS, it's a framework. It's a system that you can implement in any organization, small, medium, or large. So it's an information security management system that deal with all kind of information. And this is the beginning of our discussion today. That people think that ISO or ISMS or any information security, it's about digital information, which is not right. It's about all type of information. You are responsible on all the information, digital information, hard copy information, paper, people, process, everything. So for instance, and this is a very rare scenario, but it will make my point, that assumes that there is an organization that have any kind of critical business, but they are not using any computer. They are, I know that this is not actually a common situation, but assumes that if there is an organization that all their work are paperwork and everything is documented on paper, they don't use any computer. Does it mean that they will not need an information security specialist? Still, they will need an information security specialist to deal with the information, but they only have one type of information, so they may have less amount of controls. So the point here, when we are talking information, please do not consider only digital information. We're going to talk about all kind of information inside the organization. So the ISMS is just a framework, a system that companies are looking to implement in their premises. Once they implement the ISMS, they will be qualified. If they implement it in the right way, they will be qualified to apply and get the ISO 27001, which is the highest information security certification. So this certification that I'm talking about, it's issued for organizations that have a proper ISMS. And this is not a one-time process. I mean, when organization implement an ISMS and apply for the certificate and get certified, this is not the end of the story. They're going to need to maintain the certificate. Certificate need to be renewed every 3 years. An internal audit need to be done annually, and then a renewal audit will be done every 3 years. So it's a continuous process. It's not like a task that you're going to do for an organization and that's it. So ISMS is a prerequisite to get the ISO 27001 certification. Why is it important to get an ISMS? Why your organization or why any organization right now is looking for people who got experience implementing ISMS? For many reasons. First, for competition. Now, if you are a business, whatever business you are, okay, you provide services, you provide product, whatever services you are as an organization, okay, and you plan to deal with government, or you plan to deal with banking sector, or you plan to deal with military, right? If you are ISO certified, which means you implemented an ISMS and all the information in your organization, different type of information, are secured, they will not have any problem dealing with you and share with you their information. Those could be customer information, those could be operational information, could be government information, but getting the certificate will let your partner or your supplier, your companies that you are dealing with know that you are following the best practice, you are certified from ISO, which means that you have a proper information security management system. So you will have a very good chance to work with those government or military or whatever sector you are planning to. This is the first benefit. Second, which I believe it's more important, and that's why management is pushing to hire people with experience in ISMS, which is a compliance and framework. For instance, if you are a business in Europe, okay, Europe are following a standard right now. It's a mandatory standard. It's not an option, which is the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation Protection Regulation. In ISMS, there is a very big portion related to data protection and data privacy. So by getting the ISO 27001, you are fulfilling many of the requirements of the GDPR. If you are working here in Dubai, we are following a government standard called ISR, Information Security Regulation. It's 90% similar to the ISMS. So if you as an organization implement ISMS, you fulfill the government requirement. So if you get an audit from the government and you already have an ISMS in place and you are ISO certified, you will not find any problem comply with the audit process. So the point here is that management now are looking for people to implement ISMS to stand in the business with different competitors, but most important to comply with the regulation and framework and standard from government or different security requirement related to in which country you are. So this is quite important, and that's why there is a big demand for that right now. Talking about ISMS component, what exactly is the component of the ISMS? We have 11 closures, which is, we can say, conditions. For instance, in the ISMS, which I'm going to share with you within a few minutes, I'm going to show you the standard itself. It will have clauses from 0 to 10 explaining what is the foundation to build the ISMS. You should have management support. You should have policy and procedures that support your business. So the first 11 clauses are just to explain the prerequisite, the foundation of the ISMS. And then the most important is the 104 controls, which we're going to explain in a few minutes. So the ISMS consists of 11 clauses and 114 controls. Before moving to the explanation of that and showing you the standard and how we are using it in real business, I just need to clarify a doubt that face many people. It's related to the difference between information security and IT security. Because some people got like a barrier. They think that to move to the information security, they need to be technically very strong. And they start wasting time studying firewall and studying network equipment and studying IPS, which is actually not the case. Information security, it's a much more higher subject than IT security. Actually, IT security is a part of information security. And as I explained in the beginning of this lecture, that we are dealing with all type of information. We are dealing with digital information that is located on computers and different devices. We are dealing with paper. We are dealing with contract, receipts, people. Even people is considered information asset. So you need to understand that IT security is a part of information security. And your role as an ISMS professional or information security specialist or cybersecurity specialist, whatever the title is, not to implement the technical security, but to make sure that the technical controls are done by the right people. So if one of the control, for instance, related to access control, which is done by the technical team, I just need to check the control and make sure that the people responsible for the network are following the right process and are implementing the right controls, which you're going to see by the end of this session. So please try to distinguish between information security and IT security. We are here today to talk about information security. And again, technical security is not a prerequisite. You need to have a basics knowledge, but it's not like you need to be an expert in firewall or database or network. You just need to have a basic knowledge about them. After all, you are not the one who are implementing or who are configuring the firewall policy or the password policy. You are just making sure it's done by the right people. So when we are talking about ISMS implementation, we are covering 3 different pillars. Okay, first, people. So we have some controls in the ISMS related to people. And actually, honestly speaking, people is one of the main challenge in our business. I'm not just talking about social engineering and attacks, but I'm talking about people that need to understand the value of the information that they are dealing with. Okay, so in any organization, you should have policy which is considered law of the organization. Okay, assume that you are in a country that doesn't have any law. Imagine the chaos that you will be dealing with. So same concept apply in an organization. Any organization need to have some policy related to dealing with information asset, with all the information, right? But if you do not apply policy, or if you don't have policy in place, then people can do whatever they want. They can steal information, they can work careless, they can do a lot of damage, and then they will say, we didn't know that this is the wrong process or this is the wrong action to be done. So you need to have this policy in place, okay? And also people need to be aware of the policy. I saw many places that there is a policy in place, but when you go to any department and ask people, are you aware of the email policy? They have no idea about what I'm talking about. Do you know anything about incident policy? If you have any security incident, to whom you're going to report? Nothing. And actually, this is what auditors do. They check if people are aware of their organization policy. So it's not to have a policy, but to make sure that people are aware of the policy and are following the policy. Okay? So we are dealing with people by implementing policy and doing awareness and explain to them the proper usage of the company resources. We have a policy for internet usage. We have a policy for email usage. We have a policy for mobile device usage and so on. Then we have technology. And this is a third of the full picture. So if we have technology in place and the technology are used to save information, we have customer information, we have client information, financial information, then we need to implement control, like password, like encryption. And as I told you, you are not the one who's doing that. You are just making sure it's done by the right team. You are just following up, audit them, but it's not your responsibility. And then we have control related to process. What does it mean, related to process? Okay. Let's assume that you are working in a government entity who issue construction license. Okay. So anyone who need to build a villa or need to do any building inside this city, he will go to this government entity and he will request a permission or a permit or a license to do whatever construction he need to do, right? So if this company decided to have only one guy responsible to issue this license, okay, this is a big weakness. Because what if this guy left the work or one day he didn't show up? The service will stop, right? What if this guy misused this privilege he have and start using license without verifying document just because he's getting money or any kind of misuse of this services, right? So this is a weakness inside the process. So according to that, you as an information security specialist, you need to put some controls because you study the process. You see, you know that this entity are providing this critical services, and this critical service may have a very bad consequences if it was not done in the right way. So maybe your suggestion is to hire 2 or 3 people that they need to verify the document. So anyone who need to get a license or who need to get a permit for a construction, it will not just be one employee responsibility. One will sign, one will review, and one will approve. Okay. By doing that, you are lowering the probability of having anything wrong. Okay. So my point here is that ISMS, guys, is not just technical controls. It includes different area, which is the people, technology, and process. And to be able to do that the right way, you need to understand the business of the organization very well to identify the weakness point. Okay, but you don't have to worry. All the controls are written inside the standard. Okay, so it's not like you're gonna invent something, but you will find the proper control. You just need to make sure how to implement it. Okay, now let me show you first some document, and then we'll get back to the different domain of the ISMS. So let's go first to the ISO standard. This is the ISO standard document, and as you can see, it's quite generic. You will find the 4 clauses, you will find all the control, but they are talking in general. This is all the clauses, and then you're going to have the control. They are all very, very generic. So it's not that they're going to tell you that you need to have a password policy. Password need to be more than 8 characters, and it need to be changed every night. It's not like that. Very, very general. You need the control. You read the control, I'm sorry. And then you need to clarify how it should be implemented in your business. And this is actually the real effort that you need to do. It's to translate this document to a clear controls that you can explain for business, you can explain for normal user, and they're gonna implement it. Okay, and let me show you a small example about what we are talking about. So let's take this document, which is a gap analysis. Okay, so we have different domains that we're going to go through right now. But as you can see, for instance, we have information asset, how the organization need to deal with the information asset. And in each domain, we have few controls. For instance, in information asset, which you're going to explain, by the way, within a few seconds, they have 13 control. I did an audit and I found that 12 control are implemented and 1 control are partially implemented. And people from this department need to work on this control, while 0 are, we don't have any missing control. Okay, we have, for instance, here operation and communication, 41 control implemented, 16 are partially implemented, and one of them are not implemented. The total are that much. So let me show you the controls, how it can be simplified, because as I just explained, it's not quite simple when you read this document, when you read the standards. So you need to have some additional resources that can help you identify those controls and simplify them. So let's take, for instance, the first domain, which is the information asset management. Okay. So as you can see, this is the control number, and this is the explanation of the control. Inside the ISO standard, you will find just information asset management and just a couple of lines to explain. But you need to clarify that very well. So here I wrote that any organization or the departments that I'm auditing to make sure that they are implementing the ISMS need to have or need to identify all the information asset. Those could be document, Excel file, digital file, databases, software. All those documents need to be identified and need to be written in a document. This could be an Excel sheet, it could be a database, but this need to be done. And this is one of the requirements of the ISO. It's not quite clear in the standard like that. And this is your role. You need to simplify the process. And you need also to search, okay, if they ask each department in the organization to hold an information asset register, okay, you need to search how the information asset register look like. Because it's not just to write down all your information. You need to write down who's the owner, who's the custodian, the sensitivity of this information, the location. So you need to have a full description of each information asset. And this makes a lot of sense, because if you are not able to identify all your information asset, how you can secure them? So the first step definitely is to identify what information do I have. If I'm a bank, I have customer information, I have transaction information, I have their balance, I have financial information. So I need to have all those information listed somehow, and I need to understand who's responsible for that. Because if tomorrow something happens, if information get manipulated or stolen or lost, at least I get to track them. Who is responsible for this information? Where it was stored. Okay, so I'm not talking about this specific control, but I'm talking about translating the standard to a clarified control. Because after all, this sheet that I'm doing, I will send it to department. I'm going to do this audit for HR department, and I'm going to send them this sheet telling them you need to have this, and I found that you don't have, or maybe partially you have, and this is what you need to do to fix it. So you need to be simplified as much as you can. You don't need to be complicated or technical or something like that. Okay, so your effort is to try to take the ISO standard and try to get all the control and simplify them. Those are not technical control. Only very few of them are technical. Okay, so the 114 control are divided in different domains. We have the information asset management, where everything related to managing information, securing information, how to deal with the information, how to list them in a file, how to update them, how frequently we need to update. All the control need to be implemented. So you need to go to the standard, read them very well, and then write them in an Excel sheet the same way I did, and then search for resources. If I'm talking about an asset register that will include all the information asset, okay, you never saw an asset register. Do a search online. Search about asset register template, information asset register, and see how exactly department need to fill this document. Okay, risk management. This is the second domain. Okay, how can we conduct a proper risk management? This is not an easy process, by the way, but if you do some effort, if you search online for the risk register, what is the process for doing a proper risk management, you will find a lot of templates that will help you. and will let you understand, because eventually you're going to need to explain that to different departments, because for asset register, for instance, you are not the one who is filling them. You are explaining to different departments, HR, finance, operation, and they're going to be the one who filling those lists. Risk management, same story. So you need to understand them very well, and you need to be familiar with the different templates and forms we are using to be able to explain that for whoever department will be responsible for filling that. Okay, because eventually you're going to need to review them and make sure everything is filled right. Those are the document the certification body will review to be able to give you certificate. Then we have third domain talking about incident management. How, as an organization, you are dealing with information security incident or accident. If you lost some information, if some information gets stolen, if your computer crashed and you lost all the information, I'm not talking about your personal computer, I'm talking about your computer at work, and you lost all the information. This is an incident, right? How are you dealing with that? If you are just fixing the problem and that's it, this is completely wrong. You need to have an incident management. Whoever face an incident in your organization, any employee, any one of the staff face an incident, he need to report it. And then you need to write a report. What was the incident, the root cause, the corrective actions, the preventive action, and what was the action taken to prevent that incident to happen in the future. This is very, very important in any organization. One of the main things that they are asking about, actually, is the first three domains are very, very critical. If the certification body came to audit and give you certificate and find one of those major control not found, they will stop the audit right away. They will not ask you to fix it. So, for instance, if you every year you are getting a lot of virus and ransomware, okay, and you are losing a lot of information due to that, maybe you need to change the antivirus that you are using. You cannot figure out the result unless you analyze the situation. Every year we are getting antivirus, we are getting virus, and we are losing information. The antivirus that we are using and we are spending money, it's not effective. So maybe I need to consider changing that. So according to the incident management, you always improve your security. Then domain 4, access control management. How you are providing people with access control. If someone new join your company, what is the process to give you access to your network and your domain controller and to all the files in the organization? Okay, this is not a hard process, but there is some weakness in that. For instance, one of the main control in control in this domain is the access control review. You need to review people access frequently, every 6 months or every 1 year. Sometimes most of the time when we go to audit in organization and I ask them, show me the list of users that have access to your finance system, I usually find people who left the company couple of years back and they still can access or they still have access to some critical services. Okay, all those controls are written. They are written in the standard, and they also need to be written in a document like the gap assessment, which I showed you, and I'm going to show you one more time after we finish that. Then we have the operation and communication management, and this is the only domains that may have, not the only, but this one may be focused more on the technical control. Then we have a very, very important domain, and actually this is one of the reasons that right now there is a very high demand for ISMS professional, which is the business continuity planning. One of the requirements for ISMS is to have a proper business continuity planning. And I believe you all saw last year when this pandemic happened and people start working from home, only organization who had a proper business continuity planning was able to survive. So this is right now very, very, very critical process. And actually, that's why management in different organizations are looking to ISMS for one of the main reasons is to have a proper BCP or business continuity planning. It's a very, very important skills. It's not hard, but it needs time to understand because it's not a technical plan. It's a business plan. include a part technical, which is related to disaster recovery planning, but the full framework is a business plan. And then we have physical and environment security. This domain talking about how to secure the premises physically, and still you are involved. Maybe you are not the one who installs the surveillance cam, but for instance, you need to make sure that your organization are keeping the video recording from the surveillance cam according to the law and regulation. I was in one organization, and this was a government organization, okay? In government, for instance, in Middle East, or especially here in UAE, if you are working in any place, you need to keep all the video recording for 90 days. So if any security incident happened and then law enforcement came and asked for the surveillance video and they found that you didn't kept it, okay, if it was less than 90 days and you didn't kept it, you didn't make sure that they are kept the right period of time, you are in a lot of problems. Legal problems, not just blame from your management, but you're going to be in a legal issue. So physical security related to firefighting tool and surveillance cam, still you have a responsibility to follow the standard and best practice. And finally, key performance indicator. It doesn't make sense to implement all those security and all those controls and spend a lot of money and don't have a way to measure the effectiveness. I'm getting antivirus license for all my computer in my organization and spending thousands of dollars annually, and I cannot measure if it's effective or not. So you need to have some formula to calculate the effectiveness of your antivirus, the effectiveness of your awareness program, the effectiveness of your network security, okay? So those are the main domains that you need to implement in your organization to be able to get the ISMS. And as I told you, everything is written here, except you need to do some research. You need to understand for access control, okay, what is the access control request form, how it look like. You should not invent it. Search online, everything is available online. Risk register, how to do a proper risk register, because this is the kind of question that you will get inside any interview. He will tell you, for instance, tell me what should be included in a risk register, or what is the methodology that you are following for risk register. Tell me about, for instance, the information asset list or register. What is the type of classification? What is the difference between the owner and custodian? So it's not hard, it's doable. Actually, it's very, very doable, but it needs effort. You need to understand the process, how it's done. Besides, as I told you, do not just consider the certificate. Organization will not give you or hire you just because you hold the certificate. So certificate is important, it's very, very important actually, but not important as your skills, okay? So usually if you can end up with a sheet like that, where you can write all the control, because this is a real sheet that we are using in business and it will allow us to audit. This is called a gap assessment document, where we have all the controls and we go to each department and check, is this control implemented or not? Do you have an information asset? It's explained, information asset register with all the information. Show me. If it's there according to my requirements, then I can select here and type it's implemented, or not implemented, or partially implemented. And going through all the control, I will end up with a report telling me the status of this department or this company. So following all the control, I can have a report like that, telling me how many control implemented, how many control partially non-implemented, and accordingly I'll be able to figure out the amount of work that I'm going to do and the resources that I will need and the cost, okay? So to summarize, today's session was about the ISMS implementation, and I wanted to share with you 2 points. First, that there is a very, very high demand for ISMS implementer right now. And considering as a permanent jobs or as a freelancer, There is and the time now is the right time, okay? There is a high demand for that right now. Second point, it's not hard to understand and implement and get the knowledge needed to do an ISMS implementation in your organization, or to understand the full process to be able to apply for a job, to understand the documents, the process, how it look like, everything related to the ISMS. It's not hard to understand. So I hope I was clear regarding the session, and I hope it was informative. And now we're going to take 15 minutes in case you have any question